Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Mitten Backstage, where I am having a wonderful conversation with Grand Rapids-based creator Tom Him. I recently reviewed his album for Local Spins, which you can find on the Local Spins website. If you enjoyed the conversation today and want to support podcasts like this, you can go to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker. There you will find access to other podcast episodes, other videos, private live streams, and even the ability to use me for lessons, consultation, or even studio recording. So thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy today's episode with Tom Him.
That's cool. Right on.
But yeah, I appreciate your willingness to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. So I guess that's about as good as an intro as any, just like
Yeah.
saying hey and how's it going. Because I mean, what kind of sparked me wanting to chat with you was like, everyone's had 2020 be, it's been ebbs and flows. And some people have been at like, creative peaks, and other people have been like, I had to like slowly get back into doing artsy stuff.
Yeah, right.
And when I reviewed your record for Local Spins, and I was having a tough time like trying to fit everything in the format.
Yeah.
Because it's
totally.
There's so much in the songs that you wrote, like lyrically. I'm not much of a lyricist myself, but I at least when I look at them and I'm like, okay, this could be literal, this could be like the geography, like when you're talking about volcanoes, like is it related to emotion, is it related to something in mythology, like a story within a story type thing. So I guess I don't know how has 2020 been for you, and then like how did that kind of feed into, I knew a little bit of background to the songs from the Annex. But yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. Back in March, I was working, got laid off. And
it's great.
It's been great for me. Yeah. I know for a lot of people it's been hard, but it's kind of been a blessing in a lot of ways. But I got laid off, and I live in like a small third floor apartment. My roommate isn't here, which has kind of been nice during quarantine because it's so small that I wouldn't have been able to play music or anything. But as I said in, I think it's mentioned on Local Spins, but some friends have a little like collective called Whom Hits here in town, and they put out a call they want to do a compilation for everyone in quarantine writing songs at home. So I did that. I wrote a song. It took like 15 minutes. I was like, oh, that was really fun. It was just simple, and I've got GarageBand, and I don't have mics or anything, so I was using the laptop mic and plugging directly in. But it was so fun, and I was like, oh, I just want to keep writing songs. And then the original goal was to make an album on GarageBand and just like not get it really. I'm not doing anything professionally to it. Not get it mixed, not get it mastered, and just put it out, which I'm sure a lot of people have done, which is cool. But then, so I wrote, I think on the new album, 5 of the songs were written from scratch during quarantine, and the other ones I had either finished or needed to finish them. And then my buddy Austin, who I've recorded my last 2 records with, he lives out in Arizona. His partner's from Grand Rapids, so they were gonna be here for the summer. And I was jokingly, I texted, I was like, hey man, you want to like bring some equipment when you come and we'll make a record? And I was like, I wasn't really that serious. And he just
Right.
like blew my phone up. It was just like, yeah, man, I'll bring this, I'll bring this, I'll bring this. He ended up bringing like his studio. He runs this all analog studio out in the desert in Arizona, but
Oh, nice.
he drove across country with like $10,000 worth of recording equipment. And then some friends let us use their space on the west side. And yeah, we took like 5 days to record and then mixed it in 2, mastered it. And it was so quick, the whole process. I was like, what? Because my first big album took over like a year and a half to record.
Wow.
So like doing it all in like 7 days was pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's the sometimes short periods of time though. It's like, as things are rolling, as long as it feels good, like,
yeah,
you don't have to like have it just sitting incubating for like 6 years.
right. Yeah. It's called Songs from the Annex. That's what I call my apartment. And it's kind of a nod to Leonard Cohen too. A lot of his records are like songs of love and hate or songs from a room.
Oh,
So,
right.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fitting. Because I feel like, as much as I try to think of like a theme for what I write, sometimes it's just, it's as general as like, I wrote these songs in March.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's at least the starting theme.
Hmm.
Because yeah, like you talk, in the record, it's just it bounces around to different genre. It kind of has the
Uh-huh.
lo-fi garage rocky
Yeah.
through line type stuff,
Right.
and lyrically, it's not as like on the nose of like this is what it's about. It's like
Right.
there's like room for like, okay, does he mean this, or why did he bring up that thing, or like is this
Totally.
song about
Totally.
yeah.
Um, Lyrically, I guess a lot of my writing style comes from what I'm reading, listening to. I mean, obviously, like for a lot of people, that's how it goes. But
Yeah.
um, lyrically, I think most songs are like, I couldn't tell you. It's like about one thing. It's like all these things, but they somehow end up like, I think, usually creating like a story that I think is kind of left up to the listener, like whatever you want to make out of it. Or I have my idea of what it's about, and that
Yeah.
changes over time as well. But yeah, little pieces of things I've read, places I've been, things I'm learning about. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in a way, it was like there was never a point where it wasn't like being confused. It was just kind of more curious of like,
Yeah.
it's like you want to be in those experiences, but it's also, it reminds me of how I tend to like, when I try to explain like music or some kind of idea, and then I start talking about a thing, and then a nugget of something leads to another thing, and then
Boy.
another thing, and
Yeah.
and at the end of it, it's like it all makes sense to me because I started here and we ended here, but maybe we lost some people in the middle.
Sure.
But yeah, I liked that. It felt very, you know, every I'm saying this, I guess, like it felt fitting to 2020, not in the way that you were like, these songs reflect our times, and
Mm,
but it
yeah.
felt, it like because 2020 just felt like this weird jumble of like this insane thing is happening and we should all focus on it, but also like, hey, like what about rent? And then this thing's happening, the world's on fire, like I
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
it so it was nice to kind of have like something to listen to where you're not like you could obviously like bob your head and like, okay, this is a nice tune, like
Uh-huh.
there's familiar elements, and then you get to the end of the song and you're like, wait a minute, where didn't we start with like like a love story and now we're like here, or like what? So that definitely like struck me as something that stood out, because I try to be, as someone who's been doing more reviews in the
Mm-hmm.
local scene the last couple years. I try to, I'm not there to sit down and be like, oh man, they should have tweaked this thing, or oh, that guitar's a little out. Like
Oh yeah.
it's always like, because I try to put myself in like, all right, what was I doing when I was 20? Like I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
half of the things figured out.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't have
yeah,
anything recorded like that.
yeah.
Um, so to have something that's like different in a way that's like you can't just sum it up and like, okay, they wrote some songs about spring and like it's cool, but that I not to say that it like, yeah, it's a weird line of like, I don't want to be dismissive of like, okay, this album I've heard this album before, but you don't want to be that dismissive of like, no, but this is someone's story. Like, but with yours it was very apparent, like this is this is a combination of like styles and
Mm.
influences, and you know I'm surprised it was written in 7 days, purely because it feels like so many like disjointed moments strung together, and
Yeah.
it's like quick thinking, I guess, to like.
Not written in 7 days,
Oh,
but
okay, recorded in 7 days.
recorded over, yeah, recorded and mixed over 7 days. So I had written the songs, and then we recorded it in the summer. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's I liked that you kind of go into each track with like some little nugget of like, oh, this is a spoken thing, this thing is in Spanish, this thing is
mm,
right into the driving part of the tune.
mm,
Like it's nice to have those, each track kind of like be different but still like fit
yeah,
sonically together.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you've been doing the Tom Him project artistry thing. I don't know, like I know when I met you,
Yeah.
like, were you doing it during like 2014, 2015, or was it like a later thing after the, or was it always a thing with, I
Mm,
never was in this like the scene enough with when the Soil and the Sun
yeah.
was around, so I never like, or maybe I saw the band in passing and was just like, that sounds cool, and then they're like, they're done, and I'm like, oh, okay. Cool.
I do you remember what year it was when you were playing with Ben?
Yeah, I want to say it was between 2013 and 15.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think my first show as Tom Him was in that apartment where you guys would,
Oh,
where he and I lived, and I think you guys practiced there, maybe in
yeah,
his
it was.
bedroom.
Yep, with it was me, Brad, and Becca, and Ben.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, was I in Soil and the Sun? I think I was in Soil and the Sun, or just a little bit after, and I was playing drums in that band. Um, and then I just started. I think I had an acoustic guitar, but I didn't know how to play it really, and I got like a Groupon for like 5 guitar lessons at is Groupon still a thing?
I was, you say Groupon, and I'm like, when was the last time I used a Groupon? It feels like it's been a couple years.
Wow. But what was the Southtown Guitar in
Yeah.
Easttown?
Yep.
Um, I had a couple lessons there, and then this is so funny. I learned a few things, and I just started kind of writing really simple songs. But I went in for a lesson one day, and the people that ran the guitar lessons, it was kind of separate, I think, from the actual shop. And I showed up for a lesson, and like, oh, your teacher quit and started his own business. I was like, oh, cool. He didn't call me and tell me. So I had taken a few lessons, started writing some tunes. I did it like I think 2012, I did a really simple like EP. It was just like acoustic guitar and vocals. And then, do you know John Hanson?
Yeah. Yep. I'm surprised I didn't meet him sooner with how many people we knew.
Yeah.
I think the first time I met him was last year at Farm Block, I think.
Oh, nice. Were you
Yeah.
playing? Was Earth Radio playing, or who was playing?
Yeah, we did. We
Cool.
played on Sunday. Yeah. So
Sweet.
like the Sunday afternoon right before the guys in you know Talking Ear,
No.
Esther
Uh-uh.
Cohen.
I know of Esther, but yeah.
Yeah, Esther. Well, I guess she recently, I mean, within the last year, maybe half a year, she left the band. But they, you know, it's a bunch of like great East Side musicians that are just great, like not just writing cool jazz stuff, but like just songs and structures and ideas, and it's like music that kind of challenges themselves as players while also like you know giving the audience some kind of unique
Uh-oh.
experience.
Froze for a second.
Oh, I did. um yeah, it's like a blend of cool instrumental arrangement and like music that's like tricky for them to play sometimes, but you hear the like confidence in all their musicianship. They're just a cool band. But
Sweet.
yeah, but I do know John.
John.
I've heard Saltbreaker and
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. My first like I did an EP with him. He recorded it and helped produce it. And that was kind of like the first major thing I did as Tom Him, I guess.
Okay.
That was called Early Magic. That was 2014. And then I recorded an LP with Jacob Ballard. I don't know if you know Jacob. I play in a band with him called Major Murphy.
Oh, okay. I know Major Murphy. Yeah.
And so he recorded that and played on it with me. That was like a big undertaking. That was the one that took a really long time. It was going to be like 16 songs. And I think it got whittled down to 12 songs. But it's cool. There's a song on Songs from the Annex that was demoed for that album, which was 2016 or 17. And it didn't make the cut, so I rearranged it. And that's on Songs from the Annex. But that was the one that starts off with the Spanish verse. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with all this, but so.
Hey, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
Some people get. That's one thing I've been, you know, having fun with these, you know, these earlier episodes of the podcasts.
Yeah.
3 that I'm trying to do. Not all of them are weekly though, so that'll save me some sanity. But
is this one weekly?
Yeah. So
cool.
The idea. This is so far. It's episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I've the previous 2 episodes were with Patty Pershela and Caleb Elzinga was the first one.
Cool.
And you know, the idea with, you know, the live streams to patrons and all the other behind the scenes-y stuff, that'll be like early access to the finished product, early access to you know, things.
Yeah.
And interactivity options too, because I wanted to, with this podcast in particular, I wanted to have a vehicle of like, okay, there's a lot of people that don't really get to see a ton in the scene or I get to interact with, but we all have, you know, we all see little glimpses of like, oh, they put out a record, oh, they did this thing,
yeah,
oh,
right,
yeah. So just a way to, you know, reach out and connect and all that.
Yeah. Well, I know Hannah, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I met Hannah at Fountain Street Church.
Okay.
Playing there a few times together. But I've been a volunteer programmer at WICE for about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
So I know, like, I get to see and hear a lot of the local music, which is cool. But I've played Earth Radio quite a bit on my shows.
Oh, nice.
So,
Thanks.
yeah.
That's a, I was like about to, because last year doing a lot of album reviews, I was like, hey, I'd be interested in being a volunteer programmer if there's a need, and I got like the quick rundown before they were like, hey, we got enough people in this next round. I think it was when like Patty and a couple other folks
Okay.
like did the training.
Yep.
So, but actually, that reminds me, Jess was saying like, hey, if you wanted to, do like put together something and do it remotely, like let us know. So
That's rad.
maybe I'll learn that way.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm always like, if music is gonna be like, as much as people ask sometimes like, oh, do you have a hobby, or do you have like, what do you do in your spare time? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a musician. I do
Yeah.
music things.
That is your life.
It's like it's trying to like, to some it's like, oh, it's just music, like that's all the time, cool. But music has so many different career things and different little, always something to learn,
Yeah.
and people keep putting out new music, so you have to, try and keep up with the overwhelming amount of things happening.
Yeah.
Or not. I guess some of my friends are like, they stopped listening to music in terms of their taste at a certain decade. And they're like, these are the people I like listening to, and
Uh-huh.
it's like, cool. There's still more music in case you want any more.
Yeah. I guess if you're doing reviews and stuff, you're always like in it.
Yeah,
But,
it's
yeah.
it's a mix of local spins is kind of a more. I'm starting to write more regularly for them. I had done some pieces in the past by kind of mainly approaching John, and um, having like, like, hey, my friends are putting out a jazz record. I went to the concert. Do you want a little write up about the concert? And then there's one year when Herbie Hancock came to Meyer Gardens, I got to do kind of a musician's review insert for an article that was going to be written about the concert,
Oh,
and
rad.
that was like, I got a press ticket.
Oh man, I'm losing you.
Oh no. Is it back?
Not quite.
Oh. Is it like the video
Oh,
stutters?
it's that. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I could try a couple things, but if it's on your end, I
Yeah, right.
I don't have a long enough Ethernet cable.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
Let's keep going. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always had to like, or not always had to. I've always enjoyed writing about music. I started like I started like reporting on the things I was involved in, in a sense, doing my first, like, I had a WordPress blog, and all of my friends in the Grand Valley Music Building, we would put on these little like chamber concerts in the library, and it could be a straight and narrow, like this guy's playing Bach, or like this guy's doing a piece for oboe and electronics and he's just trying it out, or like this guy's
Sick.
doing like weird tuba with cool multiphonic stuff, and then I would just kind of report on like, this is happening, like you can go to these things. And it kind of evolved into like,
Sorry, man. I'm having some problems over here.
oh no, that's fine. That's
Okay.
good.
If I turn my Wi-Fi off and turn back on, I'm probably gonna lose you, right?
I think so, but that's
Yeah.
fine. At least my window will still be open, so you can like
Okay.
rejoin and stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna try that. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Cool. Yo, yo.
I think it's working.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
just let's keep going, I guess.
Yeah, so it like Grand Valley was kind of the first time, you know, I started going 2011, and like 2013, early 2013 was where I kind of, you know, I met Brad Fritcher, and then I started playing with Hannah Rose's band at the time, which, you know, is like
Mm-hmm.
Justin Abdeck and Wieringa and Mario and all these players that have their hands in different projects.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like that was kind of the first time I was like, you know, interacting with the scene beyond like casually seeing some stuff, and then, um, you know, I would get a gig that's like, oh, you're gonna play at this business and it's gonna be a certain crowd, but it's not necessarily the scene, it's just work.
Yeah, totally.
So I had done some stuff in high school with like a jazz combo, but it wasn't like we gigged regularly. It'd be like, oh, we got a gig this fall that's not at school, and we're gonna jam every week until that gig. But
Where's Brett Fisher now?
Brad is still in Pittsburgh. He
Oh, he
was,
went to Pittsburgh.
yeah. So
Huh.
he was actually, it was, you know, I was supposed to do, well, a lot of things 2020, but I was supposed to do a tour with him in April, and he had spent a little time in the summer in Manistee because his wife Kelly, that's where all of her family is, and Manistee is kind of close to where Brad grew up.
Okay.
Um, but Kelly's finishing her doctorate in something related to psychology. I don't
Okay.
want to say like behavioral, like I don't know, cognitive. What's the category? Um, but I know their plan is to like once they're able to, you know, once everything's kind of finished up in Pittsburgh, they'll be back
Oh, right on.
in West Michigan.
Okay.
So
Cool. He played on a record of mine a couple years ago. It was
oh,
fun to
nice.
have him hop on. Yeah.
Hmm.
I forgot about Brad. I was like, I
Yeah.
haven't seen him in years, but he's been gone.
Right, yeah. He's been gone for at least, I want to say at least 3 years,
Okay.
because we had a gig. It was me and him and I don't know if you know this jazz drummer Andy Zamowski at
Mm-mm.
all.
Mm-mm.
He plays with. Uh, he's actually been playing like lap steel with Hannah Rose's new project,
Oh, sweet.
and he plays drums with Cameron Blake.
Yeah.
Um,
Cameron is my neighbor. He lives right across the street from me.
whoa,
So
there you go.
then, yes, I have seen Andy. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and but we, you know, me, Brad, and Andy had at least for a summer we had two residencies. One was at a spot that I keep forgetting the name of, but it was in East Grand Rapids, and it was like we'd do two sets on a patio, and then the next day was when Long Road Distillers tried to do their like jazz and gin Mondays or something,
Okay.
and we had shared that gig through the summer, and then a guitarist friend of ours moved down to Grand Rapids, and Brad was like getting ready to move to Pittsburgh, so he kind of handed off the reins of the gig to our friend who was like, you know, coming from the UP and needed something to get connected with the
Uh-huh.
scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was probably like the last gig I did. This year I sent him some Rhodes tracks for something he's working on.
Cool.
But yeah, Brad's one of those like connecting threads. And weirdly enough, I had met Kelly, like, you know, she wasn't a music major, but she was taking some music classes because she I think played in like the university band maybe, and
Huh.
um but she was in my theory class when I was a sophomore, and she was saying like, "Oh, you got to meet my boyfriend," and met Brad, and then
That's
through Brad,
awesome.
I met all the people I still see around the
Yeah.
scene.
That's awesome how that stuff happens.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, and it's been interesting for this year to like, you know, there's some interactivity with the scene, but it is that weird like, you know, the 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 different like subgroups around venues or like different bands being able to like coordinate local shows or anything collaborative there's extra hoops.
Oh, totally. Totally.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you've like, I mean, because you put together that you wrote the record and put it together and, you know, not a well, I guess yeah, put it together recording wise and not a super long time span.
Yeah.
Um, was that like, you know, was that enough to be like, okay, I put out this record, I've done something to stem the tide of this year? Or did
Uh,
that kind of reignite like, oh, now I'm gonna start going here and doing
It's a good question. I mean, the record just kind of happened because it needed to happen, I guess. Out of, just came out naturally, and
yeah,
being at home. Um, and I would also say, since putting it out, and just over the past 9 months, just things I've been learning, reading, doing like introspection. Um, like music will probably always be part of my life. I love it
yeah,
so much. But I'm also holding it very loosely right now in my mind. Just kind of letting it unfold as it needs to, if it needs to. I've been playing a Major Murphy, which is really fun. We have a new record coming out, and there will be more opportunities with Major Murphy than for Tom Him, which is totally fine by me. So that's probably more of the Tom Him is I love it. Oh, it's so fun to be creative that way. And Major Murphy is fun, so I get to play with my friends and hopefully go on the road again sometime. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah. Well, I think it's important too to like, you know, some people listening might feel like they didn't do anything this year, but
oh
you know, like they might feel like, oh man, you know, he put out a record and I have to have it, but it's like everyone's had a different
yeah,
a relationship with like, you know, I can't even imagine like, or I can't even you know, count how many times, you know, this year has shown like, oh, people who were, you know, they're in a relationship, now they're not. Like they've
mm,
spent all this time realizing like, oh, you know, something needs to change, or some like I've been putting off this thing, or like, oh, I didn't really realize like I have this passion versus this thing I was just kind of doing as a job, or you know,
yeah,
it's been a year of like kind of a mirror
yeah,
to
yeah.
everyone's
I think
life.
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, my relationship with music, I guess maybe more Tom Him. It's fun to look back and see the path that I've come, the journey, like that first major EP. I mean, the first like full band EP was like, I gotta get it to these music blogs, and I gotta like get reviewed, blah blah, all this shit, and like the grasping. There's always been so much grasping of what being successful as a musician looks in my mind, or there's always been a lot of grasping, and over the past few years, it's been fun to. I've been loosening that grip and just being like, I don't know, this is fun, but if this is not what I do for the rest of my life, I think I'm okay with that. So I'll just do what's right for the moment, I guess. But
yeah. And I totally, I feel like that's a better, because it's not like you're leaving, you're not turning into a person that's like, and again, no knocking to anyone's journey, but
yeah.
As someone who, as I keep running into people who like, especially playing piano, like, oh, I took piano lessons as a kid, or I played piano up until college, or I still kind of noodle, but I think it's, it's too late. And it's like, no, it's never,
Oh, right.
never too late for like the passion side of it. But for, as someone who goes through it as like a career, like a passion project turned into like, I'm making an income. I'm also making more, it's more of a focal point.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, for you to get to a point that's like, you know what, I've done a lot of the things I've wanted to do, and I'm gonna keep doing more things that fit to what radiates with each season, versus like spinning your wheels on like, I'm gonna keep doing Tom Him because like these 5 people really love it.
That's about right. That's about right. It's 5 people. Do you follow this? There's this meme account on Instagram called Band Memes 666.
No, I
Oh God, it's so funny. There's this one. I'll have to send it to you. He made this like Venn diagram, and it's like a circle of the music I like, and there's a circle of the music my friends like, and there's like a little overlap, and there's a completely separate circle. Oh, it's like the music I make, and it's like none of my friends. It's like it doesn't overlap with anything. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know if that
like it, and my friends don't like it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I didn't. Yeah.
I was joking about like the weird, trying to market music. It's not like, yes, there's new sounds and stuff, and like new, like, oh, this thing sounds different than the older thing, but at the core of like, you think of like CDs or vinyl, it's like, do you want the vinyl? It costs a little bit more and it plays on a thing that you have to have a specific player. Do you want it? It's this kind of circle. Do you like it? No? Okay, here's the other circle. It's smaller. You could put it in your car. It's like, at the end of the day, people are gonna, find. I think of people who like, they think of a band who. I hear this a lot with. Do you know the band Between the Buried and Me at all?
Just the name. I don't know. I don't know the music, but
and I've seen them a couple times live, and
Between the Buried and Me. I think they got their name from a Counting Crows lyric. Just a little fun fact. Anyways, back to you.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about that. But they they put out an album. What was it, Colors? And like, everybody a little over 10 years ago is like, this is the album. This is their sound. This is what I like. It was like, at the time it was like kind of the natural evolution of their sound, but it was also like more refined in how they kind of, they write, and it was like, this is their sound. This is what people like. And some, like the older records, but ever since then they've put out, I think they've been a band for like, 20 years, and they keep putting out records, and there's people who are just like, man, I wish they'd make something like Colors. I'm like, but
Yeah,
how? You have to
right,
de-age 10 years and make a new
right.
record.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's funny. Like, I get being attached to like stuff, and especially like nostalgia, like that thing of like I loved this album when I was 15, and now
Hmm.
I just think fondly of it.
Yeah.
But I'm of sometimes to a fault. I'm the guy who's like looking at the new thing and the next thing and like trying to follow my artists into the deep wherever they're
Yeah.
going.
That's cool.
um, which in jazz school is not necessarily the way to do it. Everyone's like, everyone's vibing you on like, hey, have you listened to like Coltrane's thing at the Lotus Lounge in 1968 with these people? And you're like, no. It's like, man, you should listen to it, man. That's great. You're like, I don't. There's so much music. I'll get to it.
Right?
It's like Coltrane isn't new anymore. It's been 40 years.
Yeah.
Coltrane's still great, but he's not new. Like,
Yeah. For me, it's been, I don't know how it is for you too,
yeah.
but like getting older, I'm being introduced more to like music from the 60s and the 70s. And then that's new to me now. And it's, which has its effect on writing music and all that. But that's been really fun to just get into some older stuff and like older like Brazilian stuff and like
Oh yeah.
just stuff from like Chile. And it's been fun to kind of go down some rabbit holes and from some world music from all like the 60s and 70s is very fun. And then somehow it sort of may not sound like it like in a song that I write, but there's like somehow it's like has influenced it. Yeah, but
Yeah. Well, and uh, you know, artists have the way of like, you know, they can make something and explain anything. And, not to say like it's inherently like, oh, I don't really hear the influence in it, but he explained it as if, it was authentic to it. But like, oh, as a casual listener, I don't really hear it, and he's just making it up. It was like, no, there's there's always some like relate like I had to do a project once for an elective at Grand Valley where the dude was a musician teaching it. He wasn't like one of the full-time professors, but he was a musician, and he knew that it was a mix of like people who were taking it as an elective that weren't music majors and people who were.
uh-huh.
And he gave us the option, like we had a written final, and then we could either do like a PowerPoint, like normal like presentation type thing, or we make a song, and the song had to demonstrate like elements of the different cultures we would like visit for a second each
Wow.
month.
Did you do that?
Yeah, and I ended up like I ended up making like a very loose like I don't even know if I guess raga is the full scope of it, and then there's like
Okay.
the alap and the gat and the jor, and it's like different, and maybe that's even one part of Indian raga music culture, but it's essentially like there's a drone, and then there's
Yeah.
like improvising, and then there's like more of a rigid like, okay, it's rhythmic, and there's some sort of introduction to a theme, and then there's like
Dope.
a more improvisatory section. um so I kind of loosely did that, while also like trying to like, oh, there's polyrhythms, so it's like African
Uh-huh.
influence, and like I'm using you know these types of instrumentation, which could be in these countries, and
Oh my God. You recorded something?
yeah, it was very like, it was like four instruments, and it was like in a practice room with my phone. And then
And
I
you
just kind
you
of
did all four?
Yeah, I did.
Sweet.
I did piano and then like some kind of percussion and um, guitar, like electric guitar, but trying to like mimic like it didn't have the sustain of a sitar, but I wanted to mimic that kind of like
Uh,
like you know
that's
the
cool.
bendy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, so I've always been like I've always been a fan of artists who can like that it's not it's not trying to make it's like trying to fit it into another culture or like fit into another thing. They have an understanding of where their knowledge comes
Mm-hmm.
from listening and learning, and they're
Yeah.
able to like speak to some part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I Yeah, I try not to like think of it too binary. Like I always I always laugh at like when metal musicians are like we are influenced by jazz, and it's like okay, major seven chords aren't necessarily the only thing like that. It can come from jazz, but or like when jazzers like distort instruments and they're like we're metal, and it's like yes and no. Like it's still you still sound beboppy, but your horn's distorted. Like that's kind of a different vibe. It's like
Yeah.
fusion, like, but then to try and categorize stuff is like with Earth Radio, like there's no, that's one thing we're trying to figure out is like getting someone who like stumbles onto our music the easiest path to understanding what we do.
Hmm.
And some people are like, oh, they're like a psychedelic jam band, and then other people are like, oh, they're kind of like a like a neo soul group with some rock. And then
Yeah.
I think Chad Wedevin called us if Whitney Houston fronted King Crimson.
That's the best.
Yeah, I was like that one.
That's it. That's I love that.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm always a fan of artists being able to like speak to their art beyond just like like oh I wrote a like yes writing a tune and just saying I wrote a tune is fine, but
Yeah.
that extra it's like okay this person's walking a little bit further with what they're trying to do than
Hmm.
you know I don't know. Is that it's hard not to throw like I don't want to throw shade at like, like this high school girl wrote a song about being in love is like great. I'm not that. I'm
Yeah.
not a high school girl writing about love, but
Yeah.
more power to you. But yeah, so have you been like you I mean you've obviously gone through the journey with the album and then understanding
Hmm.
where your place is with music. So what has been like the thing that you mentioned introspection I guess too, like what has been like 2020 for you, like
Yeah.
because it's been something for everybody, and if you say it
Hmm.
hasn't, like that's you're I don't know if you're lucky if you're just like oh it was just any old year.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of been using it or viewing it as like it's been like a 9 month retreat. Um, I've been reading a ton. I've been getting into like Eastern philosophy and religion the past couple of years. So I've been just doing a lot of going down those pathways and meditating and getting into like kirtan and chanting and um, just thinking of like every part of my life. I want to use it as like as Ram Dass says, grist for the mill. Ram Dass is, I don't know if you know who that is. He's a spiritual teacher that I've been getting into the past few years. But
So
every
that's
moment, go ahead.
oh I was gonna say that grist for the mill wasn't that a lyric in one of the songs?
Yeah. Uh huh. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Every moment can be used as a way to towards liberation. However, one might maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
view what liberation is in your life and your inside of you, or for the world, or so that's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about the past few years, and a lot the past 9 months, because I've had time, thankfully, to do that, which has been really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's I mean that's I feel like if you can at least speak to something this year at all, like as a creative or in personal journey or anything that like I feel like there's at least that nugget of like something to celebrate.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, because it's obviously it's an old joke of like, oh, I was gonna do this and then like everything exploded.
Uh-huh.
But I've definitely like my introspection, I guess, as much as I like it's it's weird because I see myself as multiversed and curious about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
um but it's also there's also the element of me that is still the people pleasing student of
Mm.
in music academia, where you know a lot of what I was doing was like, all right, if I put X amount of input into a thing, then the the positive feedback comes from like these mentors reciprocating, and then leaving that environment is like, okay, what happens when there's none of those people around
Wow.
every
Yeah. New
week?
waters. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what am I working towards, and how do I you know like put input in a way that is just inherently good for me
Mm.
to like start, and then if I work with another person, or it the knowledge helps someone, or um
Mm.
yeah, it's so this year's been like the first chunk of the year was like, okay, life slowed way down, I'm gonna take a moment to like take a breather.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and then the summer was like, okay, how do I I was like trying to flip that part of the switch of like, oh, I gotta try and book a bunch of things, do things, and like have the band doing stuff and doing things, and of course like you can't you know speak for everyone during this kind of time.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a moment of like, okay, I can have a drive and a focus, but I don't need to necessarily like look, because I had kind of replaced music mentors with like other bosses, and my skills improved, and I'm happy to have worked with different people, like founders, or trying to be in a booking role for people.
Cool.
um but the this year was kind of like understanding like, okay, I have goals that I want to do, and I can't bring everybody along in the process, but I can hopefully you know get to a point where I've created opportunities to bring those people into those spaces,
Huh.
rather than like you know delaying the start of something like podcasting, or making more video stuff, or writing, uh, like delaying it because I'm trying to use those skills towards other goals, other people's visions.
Mm.
um, and it's still ongoing, but
Sure.
it was nice
Yeah.
to like have that moment of clarity of like, oh yeah, I can just like that's partially why I have this office, is like, while I'm going to be working with Third Coast recording, this is a place I can like shut the door and just like, what do I want to do? Play something? Do I want to like I threw together this thing I still need to figure out, green screen.
Cool.
Like it's like, what do I want to? There's an artist I follow, Sarah Longfield, and she's like one of the the warriors of, I feel, of like the YouTube sphere, because she's a metal musician on YouTube, which is already like okay niche, and then she's a woman in metal in on YouTube, which is just it's fodder for the worst people to just throw all of the worst
Oh
things
God.
in the comments.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's very transparent with her posting, but she's also like, she's one of those people that like she posted something the other day that was like, oh, I needed a new bag, so I learned how to make a backpack. I'm like, what? It's like I've never like, oh, I need a new table. Let's learn carpentry this week
Yeah.
or
So is
this
that
month.
was that inspiration for your green screen?
Yeah, it was like okay, I'll look up like DIY green screen
Yeah. Cool.
and spent some money on the PVC, and if it I feel like once I get some clips, it'll work just fine for what I need it to do, and
Uh-huh.
I can start figuring out how to put backdrops in that aren't like auto generated from Zoom, and
Right. That's cool.
yeah,
Getting better at the game.
yeah, get definitely figuring out how to like play this game. So much, yeah, so many
Yeah.
rules.
Hmm.
And no rules, no framework, but sort of a framework, but
Mm.
yeah. So it's been, I'd say, more fun and this year in the latter half. It was like the beginning, kind of navigating, April through June, just figuring out like, okay, I'm not working at Founders, I'm not going on the road, everything's getting canceled further out. Like, what do I do with my year?
Mm.
And yeah, it's I think everyone's going to come out of the other side a little bit more knowledgeable about like just their own life, even if there's still like a lingering thing like, oh, I meant to do this year. Like, you're at least alive and
Yeah.
doing things and adapting in some way, and
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know, it's great to see people making things this year.
Yeah, I should say I just feel really blessed and lucky to have been able to. I got laid off, but unemployment has been. I can live, by food. Oh, there's somebody behind you
Oh,
knocking on your door.
hi. Uh, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'll check in a second.
That's fun.
Yeah, I almost need like the. Have you been to Third Coast?
No, uh-uh.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's a
Is
great.
Brian still working there?
Um,
I
Brian.
forget Brian's last name. Jessica and the Rainbow and Brian.
Oh, he was working. I think he stopped working when the pandemic hit,
Okay.
or like, it shut down stuff, I guess. But
Okay.
he was here more last year. He yeah, I uh I started having an office. I was in a different spot and I was sharing it. First I was sharing it with Mark Lavengood, and then I was sharing it with L Lively and another musician,
Okay.
Nuri Tet. And then the top of the year, um I left the office space because there was an opportunity to like, find some place a little bit more affordable. But with this office that I'm in now, it's more manageable than the slightly larger spot. Um, yeah, it's been like a
And you get it to yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice to like not have to worry about like, oh, is this person just gonna bail?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
um, but yeah, you should. Third Coast is it's it feels older than it is. It's like still a newer space in how it looks right now. And Bill is, super. Bill Chrysler, who owns it, he's super knowledgeable. I'm going to be learning more about the SSL board that he put in the control room, and
Cool.
yeah, he's one of those guys that like he'll have a story that you're like, wait a minute, you just mentioned that he toured for 6 years with John Mayer and played Maroon 5 he was with for a few years, and he's worked with Christina Aguilera and as a live sound engineer, and I'm like, it's like you've done so much.
That's cool.
He's definitely on my list of guests to have.
Oh yeah, yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. If you want, you can definitely come check out the
cool.
space.
Yeah, maybe after the world ends or doesn't end, or.
Yeah, the world's gone. Studio's wide open. Also gone, but
lots of time.
Yeah. Well, this is great.
Yeah.
Thanks for being, flexible and a guest.
Yeah.
And all that.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. So you mentioned, a couple things that you're doing right now. I guess Major Murphy. I don't know if you have anything you want to plug or check out this thing.
Yeah.
Record.
Well, check out the new record. It's called Songs from the Annex. It's streaming everywhere. I should mention I'm working with a label out of Indiana called Jugo Rada, and they've been great. They're a brand new label.
Nice.
One of the first artists they've been working with. So we're doing a cassette release for this record, and with COVID and the state of USPS, they are still in transit somewhere. But yeah, there's cassette tapes if you're interested in cassette tapes. It's streaming. Major Murphy, our record, will be out next year. There's a lot of stuff coming down that pipe. So yeah.
Nice.
And I'll be looking for a job probably in the next few months. So if anyone has any job ideas for me, hit me up.
Yeah. Yeah, and for any folks listening, if you dug these kind of conversations and want to figure out how to support, you can go to patreon.com/Tracy Snedeker. I have links to socials and different tiers that you can support. You can get things like physical newsletters with little sticker inserts, or you could have a lesson or consultation with me, or use me as a recording artist. There's knowledge to be gleaned from the podcasts, and appreciate those of you who are supporting right now.
Cool.
And I guess we'll see all y'all in the next episode of Mitten Backstage.
Are you related to Sam Snedeker? Guess not.
There's so many.
Do you know Sam?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I feel like someone's mentioned a Sam Snedeker before.
Okay, he was in Ribbons of Song and an early band set up of Radiator Hospital, and he was in Sacred Strays with Brian Barnes, if you ever knew that band. But he lived with Ben and I, and his name is Snedeker. So, but yeah.
I'll have to find him.
Yeah, go find him.
Yeah. Well, and I might be related to Brant Snedeker, the golfer, too. If I am, I'll just invoice him for birthday. You're like, can you get some of that PGA tournament money? Your long-lost nephew?
Sponsor the podcast.
Yeah. You want to be a patron?
Oh, dude. Do you do those little ad commercials for podcasts? Get your golf uncle.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just pop in on golf-related things. Like, this is about music. But,
cool. Well,
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice talking with you.
Yeah, nice chatting. Enjoy your evening.
You too. All right. Later.